All right, let's peel back the layers on the silicon that powers our entire world, but in a way you've probably never thought about before. We're going to explore how our technology doesn't just work, but how it lives, how it breathes, and maybe most importantly, how it remembers. You know, we tend to think of computer chips as these perfect, static little things, but that's not the reality at all. They actually degrade over time. Things like heat, simple aging, and tiny, tiny imperfections from manufacturing cause them to change constantly. And this slow, steady change has a name. We call it drift. And that drift? Well, that's a huge problem, right? I mean, if the very foundation of our digital universe is constantly shifting under our feet, how can we possibly build reliable systems on top of it? How do we account for this constant, inevitable change? That's the big question we're tackling today.
Okay, so to get a handle on this, we've got to dive right into the problem. Deep down in the microscopic world of a single transistor, drift is caused by this mix of factors. You've got the heat from just being on, the slow march of time, and these little manufacturing quirks that make every single transistor one of a kind. And the key to modeling this entire drifting world might just be this surprisingly simple equation. This is the omega operator. It's a new way of looking at the problem that treats drift not as some random error we have to get rid of, but as a fundamental, totally measurable part of the system itself. So let's get into it. How does this powerful new tool actually work? How does one little equation manage to capture the messy, complex, always changing reality of a physical transistor? Okay, so the omega operator breaks down into three key parts. First up, you have state. That's your main input, pretty straightforward, like the signal you send to a transistor. Then you have bias, and this is where we start to embrace the messiness. Bias accounts for all those real-world imperfections, temperature drift, manufacturing flaws, you name it. And finally, there's alpha, which represents the core physical properties of the material itself that don't change. And here's the magic. When you put it all together in a model for, say, a MOSFET, which is a super common type of transistor, you get this. An equation that actually gives you an accurate picture of its real-world behavior, including that classic square law response. It's like a perfect bridge between clean, abstract theory and messy physical reality. But here's the real game changer. Unlike the old models that just give you a single, ideal picture in time, the omega model is alive. It's dynamic. It's designed to be recursive, which means the output from one moment literally becomes the input for the next. This lets it predict a chip's future health, not just tell you how it's doing right now. Okay, so we've looked at a single transistor, but let's zoom out. How do you take this idea and build an entire system that can actually trust its own hardware? Well, that's where the omega operator becomes the heart of a much bigger architecture, something called OPI. Now, this is an absolutely crucial distinction to make. OPI isn't trying to be a new theory of physics that predicts the future. It's not trying to say what will happen. Instead, it acts as a validation layer that sits on top of physics. It watches what has happened, and then decides if that event was stable and coherent enough to be considered real. So how in the world does a system validate reality? Well, it uses this incredibly powerful filter, a kind of mathematical gatekeeper called the S44 synchronization gate. The best way to think about it is like the strictest bouncer at the most exclusive club you can imagine. But for physical events, not just anything gets past the velvet rope. So for any signal or change in the system to get past this bouncer and be written into the official record of truth, it can't just show up. Nope. It has to pass three really, really strict mathematical tests. Let's check out the rules. Rule number 1, coherence has to be super high. We're talking 0.985 or better. This is basically the system's way of asking, hey, are you a real structured signal or are you just random electrical noise? It's the first line of defense against glitches. It has to be part of a stable, predictable pattern. Next up, entropy, which is just a fancy word for disorder, has to be incredibly low, at or below 0.01. This is the system's built-in defense against, well, hallucinating. By demanding a signal with very little disorder, it makes sure that only crystal clear information gets through. And the last rule, rule number 3, brings us full circle. Drift has to be practically non-existent, 0.001 or lower. This is what tames the very problem we started with. It ensures the system evolves smoothly and predictably, preventing the kind of chaotic, runaway changes that lead to total system failure. So you can just picture this happening in real time, right? You've got this messy, noisy, raw signal coming from the physical hardware. The SC44 gatekeeper is sitting there, analyzing every single data point and just tossing out anything that fails the tests. Only the clean, stable points that pass all three rules get accepted, and then they're fossilized into a permanent record. So where do all these validated truths go? They're stored in something called a Merkle fossil ledger. Now, this isn't just some simple log file. It's a highly secure digital logbook that uses cryptography to create a unique digital fingerprint for every single entry. This creates a chain of events that is completely tamper-proof. Think of it like a ship's log for the system's physical life, a perfect audit trail of everything it has ever decided is real. And this is where things get really, really interesting. Because all of this whole system, it gives us a brand new language for describing computation itself, a language that goes way beyond simple ones and zeros. What you're seeing here is basically a translation guide. We're moving from the simple binary world we all know into this much richer symbolic language, these codons. So a zero state isn't just off anymore. It's now CCC, which represents a stable hold. A 1 isn't just on, it's ATG for activation. See, it adds a whole new layer of meaning. And with this new language, a logic gate isn't just an electrical switch anymore. It's a transformation, a process. A simple NOT gate that just flips a 1 to a 0 becomes this sequence. Activation, that's ATG, moves through a switching state, TTG, to become a stable hold, CCC. It's a description of a physical process, not just an instant flip. So the big takeaway here, the crucial point, is that we're completely reframing what computation even is. It's not about perfect static calculations anymore. It's now drift-aware glyph evolution. It's a living symbolic process that's constantly adapting to the physical hardware it's running on. So this leaves us with a pretty mind-bending thought. What does it all mean? What happens when our technology can not only understand its own physical flaws, but can also build a permanent, unchangeable, verifiable record of its own physical life? Just imagine what we could build with machines that can truly remember. The possibilities are, well, they're profound.